I'm Owen Bigland. This is the Inside Edge video blog. Okay, part 2 here. I want to talk again about the current rental situation in, let's call it downtown Vancouver or Mount Pleasant or Fairview or Cambie Corridor. So the latest stats just came out. I got this off the Business in Vancouver website. They post this every quarter or so. It's from a statistics company back in Toronto. And it ranks the top 10 cities in Canada for rent. For average rent. And of course, Vancouver has always been at the top of this list from as far as I can remember, but we've seen another huge surge here in the last 3 months for Vancouver. Year over year, the typical one-bedroom rental rate has gone up 13% in the past 12 months. And I'm telling you, I think this is just the start. I think we're going to see these increases of double digits year over year for the next couple of years here for sure. COVID is over for the most part. We're going to start to see immigration moving back into the city. We're going to see contract workers coming back into the city, tech workers, students going to UBC and some of the colleges in the area. So the average one-bedroom condo in Vancouver is now $2,200 per month. And I can tell you that that's being brought down a little bit by some of the older purposely built rentals in, say, the West End, some of the old wood frame and concrete stuff that you could probably rent a one-bedroom there still for $1,600, $1,700 a month. It's going to be pretty tired. But, you know, a typical, let's call it a 12, 13, 14-year-old concrete high-rise in Yaletown, we'll call it 580 square feet, mid-floor, we'll call it 18th floor, 16th floor, with parking, you're probably looking at about $2,300 a month now. If you want something, maybe a one and den, maybe 630 square feet, probably $2,400. If you want something in a little higher end building, maybe less than 10 years old, the building has better amenities, 24-hour concierge, yeah, you can run $2,450, $2,500 for a one bedroom now with parking. That's the rates we're at, 13% year over year, and I think it's going to increase here over the next few years because we're not building anything. There's nothing really coming online here. And again, immigration is going to start back in again. Students, you're going to see some short-term rentals. They won't be Airbnb, but they'll be furnished corporate rentals. Many of those got taken off during COVID and they started renting them on one-year leases. Now, as those tenancies come out and tenants are moving, they're going to put those back on as 1 month, 2 month, 3 month furnished rentals or 5 month furnished rentals, whatever. A lot of stratas allow a 1 month or a 3 month furnished rental. And those are very desirable for contract workers, tech workers that move into the city before they get settled, might stay there for 3 or 4 months. Second in Canada, of course, is Toronto, but they're well behind. They're at $1,840 for a typical one bedroom. So well below our $2,200. The average price for a 2-bedroom in Vancouver right now is just over $3,000 a month. And again, that's brought down with some of the older stuff, probably looking, I think, at a concrete high-rise in Yaletown, nothing fancy, $3,600, $3,700 for a 800 square foot 2-bed now with parking. Now, a lot of people ask me, well, why have these rental rates gone up so much? Why are they spiking? Well, a few things. The biggest one is, as I've been blogging about many times here, is a lot of it I put on the NDP in the city of Vancouver. The NDP especially, their war on landlords. Remember, I've been talking and blogging about this for many years now, how the NDP has, you know, tried to tax everything to death, stifle the landlord. So, you know, it started with the empty homes tax in Vancouver here, then the BC spec tax. But the big one was, of course, was the 2-year freeze on rents during COVID. And, you know, they acted like all landlords were multi-millionaires. I know why the freeze was put in place, because there was a lot of people that lost their jobs with COVID. But there was a lot of landlords that also lost their jobs because of COVID. And there was, of course, a lot of stories I'm seeing in the media now and in newspapers, both Canada and the US, about, you know, a lot of tenants that just didn't pay their rent at all. And the poor landlord still had mortgage payments and property taxes and maintenance fees. And this, in some cases, has gone on for years without any income coming in from the tenant, but they're still living in the unit. Different story there. I might have to do another blog on that as well. But you know, the big thing it was, and then finally when we come out of COVID, we're running at 6% inflation right now. The NDP gives us a measly 1.5% rent increase. So what I've been blogging about here, I've done a number of blogs here. You know, there are a lot of long-time homeowners, property owners, landlords that have owned these rental properties for 10, 15, 20 years that have said enough is enough. They've called me up. I think I've told you guys I probably sold in the last 2 years probably 20 condos. 20 condos in Vancouver, Richmond, Mount Pleasant, Cambie Corridor, Kitsilano that were investor clients. They call me up and say, Owen, you know, hey, the NDP's not my friend. I've got a rent freeze going on now. The tenant just gave me notice and I want to sell the unit. I've had it for 15 years. I've made a lot of money on it. I'm getting older. Probably time to take my marbles and move on. And I've listed the homes, usually gotten into crazy bidding wars on them, and sold them well over asking price at new record prices. Here's the kicker. For the most part, most of these homes were bought by end users, not investors. There are some, and I'm still representing lots of investor clients all the time. Last year, I probably sold 10 or 12 condos to investors alone. This year already, I've sold 2 or 3 condos to investors. But of the 20 that I sold over the last year and a half, let's say, that were investor sellers, I would say 15 of those were end users or principal residence buyers. So there's 15 units that were in the rental pool that have now been taken off the rental pool. Now, no matter which way you cut it, the available units for rent by what we'll call mom and pop investors, the net, there's been a net decrease in the number of units available. So when you throw that out there with immigration coming back in, what is it, 35, 40,000 people coming in this year to the Lower Mainland, students coming back in, contract workers, some of those units will also be put into furnished rentals and taken off the one-year lease type setups. This is what you get. You get a 13% year over year, and the rental availability is probably the lowest I've ever seen. Every month, I go on to Craigslist and I have a spreadsheet that I run because I represent a lot of investor clients. So I like to know exactly at all times what the rental rates are going for in a number of stratas in Vancouver. And it's easy to find out. I just go on to Craigslist at the beginning of every month. That's when the tenants have given their notice to move out for the following month. So you'll see all the new units for rent hit around the 1st, 2nd, 3rd of the month. And the last 6 months, my wife keeps pretty close tabs on this as well, it has been the lowest I have ever seen on Craigslist. I would say it's half of what it normally is. Let's say if it's a typical month, you might see 200 one-bedroom condos come up in and around downtown Vancouver. Now it's maybe 100 one-bedrooms. And a far fewer 2 and 3 bedrooms. It's the 1 bedrooms that always get rented first on Craigslist. Those get picked off the quickest. The 2 and 3 bedrooms are still very rentable, but when you're charging $3,800, $4,000 a month, it's a little more select renter there. But this is the lowest we have ever seen it on Craigslist at the beginning of the month for rental, and that's why you're getting these rental rates going up. Landlords have decided, hey, enough is enough. The NDP's not doing me any favors. I'm going to sell. I've made a nice profit on it. And most of the new buyers are end users. They're not investors. Some are. Now, when I see this is music to my ears because I'm not selling any of my investment condos. I represent, as I say, dozens of investor clients every year. So the ones that still are buying and getting in, if they're investors, they're going to buy it, put a tenant in it, keep it for 15, 20 years. You're going to do incredible, because there's less competition and a lot more demand. And I think this 13% year over year, I could see this being repeated for 2022. And a typical 1 bed will be pushed up to 2,400 or 2,500 by this time next year. That's the state we're in right now. But it is what it is. A lot of it I put on the NDP. And just a final little thing I'll tell you. I've done blogs on this before about not selling tenanted properties. I had a call from a nice young guy the other day. I had just sold a unit in a building downtown here in Yaletown. And he now has the unit, and I got a record price for it. I ended up with 5 offers on it. This was about 5 weeks ago. Got about 5 offers on it, sold it way over asking price, sold it $735, new record price for this size unit. This young guy, he has a listing at the unit next door to mine, the one that I just sold. He's had it on the market. I saw it when it hit. It's tenanted. And he's had it listed for 3 weeks, and he's got it way below what I sold my unit for. It's basically the exact same unit. The problem is, though, it's tenanted. It doesn't show very well. It's a mess. And he called me to say, well, what was my secret? Well, it wasn't really much of a secret. First off, some of it is timing. The ebbs and flows of the market, I've been in this business a long time, and you'll never be able to nail them down. It's crazy. 1 week to the next, it's just sometimes it's just the luck of the week. You've got 2 or 3 hungry buyers that happen to be out there when you listed yours, and you caught them at the right time. But I told him, though, the other thing is, I saw your unit. You're priced well. But of course, he's on a couple of things. He's got a fixed term tenancy on this. He still has 4 months left on the tenancy. So that means that this person can't move in, even if they want to live in it, until at least the summer. The other thing is, the photos look okay. They don't look very good, but I can imagine what it looks like in person. It's probably worse. It's probably not going to smell great. Tenanted properties don't show well. Very few. You get the odd one that does. How many blogs have I done on this? You know, I told him in my situation, the one that I sold was also an investment property, but I did it the right way. I educate my sellers on how to get maximum selling price, and that was that this particular tenant was a professional lady, did not want to leave. She had been there for 3 years and loved the building. It's a great strata. But we ended up offering her a buyout. We offered her $5,000 check, cash, and if she would sign a mutual agreement to end tenancy to be out in 60 days. And we negotiated it back and forth. We had to sweeten it a little bit. And finally, she agreed to it because, hey, we were going to sell it with her or without her. I wanted to get her out, though, so that we could clean it up, do some minor repairs to it, because there were some things that needed to be repaired. The toilet wasn't working great. There were some loose cabinets. We needed to do some paint touch-ups, replace a whole bunch of light bulbs. And then we could do a deep cleaning on it and then virtually stage it to showcase it. And it pays off every single time. It will pay off. Sure, we had to pay $5,000 to get the tenant out. Keep in mind, we would have still had to have paid her 1 month rent, which was $2,200. So sure, we had to sweeten it by $3,000. But now it's vacant. Someone can buy it and move into it anytime. It shows its best. All the repairs have been done. Nothing that you're going to flag on a home inspection, even though we got subject free on it. And that's the other thing. You want it to be in mint condition so that you can entice people to write subject free, and that's what pushes your sale price up. But I don't want to give away all my secrets to this young guy. He was a new realtor, but I told him that's the thing. You're still on a fixed term tenancy. The unit does not show well. You're handicapping your listing. And how many blogs have I done on this? I've got another unit here coming up in Mount Pleasant that I'm listing at the end of this month. It's the same thing. You know, we're giving her 2 months to go out, to leave, and we're paying her, in this particular situation, 2 months rent instead of 1. We're giving her an extra month's rent. Oh, and I should point out that once you sign that 2-month tenancy, mutual agreement to end tenancy, the tenant then can move out at any time with 10 days notice. And that's usually what happens, which was great for us. We gave her 60 days, but this young lady called me about 2 weeks later and said, hey, I lucked out. I found a great unit and I'm going to be moving out in 14 days. Fantastic. I'll meet you over there in 14 days, get the keys for you. We cleaned it up, got my repair guy in, got the photos done, the virtual staging, and listed it the following week, which was great because I wanted to get it in earlier than later. And that's what's happened in this one I'm getting ready to list. We gave her 60 days. She only needed 30. Gave me the notice, and we're going to list it next week. But those are the things you want to do when you are selling a tenanted property. Get the tenant out, and there's ways to do it that works for both you and the tenant. Tenants love signing the mutual agreement to end tenancy. Give them an extra month's rent. Because again, you're going to sell it with or without them. Who wants to be in a unit when you're listing it and showing it and having strangers go through it? You don't want to do that. And you're leaving a lot of money on the table when you do sell your property tenanted. Do it the right way. But I find a lot of realtors aren't familiar with a lot of the ways to get the tenants out and how to negotiate it with your tenant so that it's a win-win situation for everybody. But that's what the rentals are doing right now. I've got a couple more units that I'm getting ready to list this spring from long-term investors. I've got another one from a guy who's retired now, living part-time in California. I'm getting ready to sell his fourth and final condo. We've been selling them slowly over the last year. And again, there's 4 more condos that were in the long-term rental pool, rented vacant 1-year lease, that are probably not going to be in the rental pool anymore. Chances are the buyers on these units, on this next one I'm going to list for him, will be an end user on it. I'm Owen Bigland. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.